Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 49 of the Second Look Sports Show. My name is Alex Mandarino. We got Brandon Brown. We have Justin Arenburg today. Christian is a busy guy. We'll probably ask him for his prediction for Super Bowl 60, and maybe we can either insert it or get it out in the show notes. But the time has come, boys. It felt like it's felt like it's been a while because there haven't been really any football action outside of the Pro Bowl last weekend. And I was going to say, would have been really cool if this episode 49 lined up as episode 60 for Super Bowl 60, but we're unfortunately not that lucky. But I am very excited. How you boys feeling about the big dance? Like, I don't know. Has it been like still excited about it? Justin, let's go to you first. You have a dog in the fight, and that's a term that I use particularly because of some of the news out this week. But how are you feeling about the Super Bowl with kind of like the lull before the actual game is being played here?
Yeah, it's kind of been like a weird, I guess, 2 weeks. It's always this way when it's the gap between the championship game and the Super Bowl, but you totally understand it. You get more preparation since you make it to the big dance, and then there's a week full of media and requirements and getting ready for the Super Bowl with getting players fitted, commercials, all that fun jazz, intros, all that stuff. So you understand it, but it's definitely now that we're like Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday, it's definitely like, okay, let's get to game time. It's 6:30 cannot come soon enough tomorrow night. And yeah, having a dog in the fight this week, it definitely I definitely want it to happen sooner rather than later and just get it done and over with. Let's see it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who wanted another team in the Super Bowl, obviously, it's definitely something that you hit on, Alex. Like the matchup, I feel like for an individual person's excitement about the game, or not even excitement, but like maybe anticipation is more the right word. It can often come down to matchups. Obviously, Chiefs fans for a long time were obviously the beneficiaries of getting to go to multiple Super Bowls. Patriots, obviously, before that were the dynasty that kept going back. But now it kind of feels like this Super Bowl in particular, for me at least. I don't know if it's the kind of the excitement around some of the other sports going on. Obviously, the Olympics have been getting going this week. There's been a ton of exciting news in the NHL and in the NBA. So I mean, it's kind of, I feel like, taken away a little bit from the prep, but it's also felt like whether it's because of the matchups or maybe the kind of lack of star power, like obviously there's been a ton of news, media days. You talked about the Pro Bowl games, like that stuff's out there, but it doesn't feel like there's like as much juice maybe this year going into the Super Bowl. So I'm excited to see if that goes into the game on the field, which I'm hoping for, which I think we all think will be a pretty good game. So I wonder if just that's all being pent up because there isn't much like animosity between these two teams. Obviously on the Patriots side, it's a lot of new faces, and even on the Seahawks side, right? Like there's not a lot of connection to the past Super Bowl game that they played, obviously. So I mean, it's kind of like maybe the start of a new rivalry with these groups, at least on these two teams.
I was just gonna add that, like you're saying, like it doesn't feel like it has the juice. I would agree, but I would also say that I think that's just Canada in general. I think that like Canada
that's a good point.
Doesn't really have the juice, but if you look at the States right now, that's all that they're talking about. They're not caring about the Olympics at this moment in time. They're waiting until after Sunday to then focus their attention. Even the NBA trade deadline doesn't get as much, love in the States because it's Super Bowl week and every show's down in San Francisco right now, every sports show, I mean, and you're there on Radio Row and stuff like that. So I think like if we were living in the States, it's a completely different story and the juice is there. But Canada, we are turned our attention to Canada going to the Olympics with NHL players, the Olympics in general, and the NBA as well. That's what it's talking about.
I don't disagree with any of what you guys have said. I do think that I don't feel bad for the Olympic setup. Like the timing of this has been the timing for a long time, but they had to have known, like whether this be like the International Olympic Committee or what have you, that the first couple of days, the opening ceremonies, they're not going to probably have the same weight, at least from a North American perspective. For the
Yeah.
world, the majority of the world doesn't care about the Super Bowl. I think I would assume now that a lot of the NFL games they're going towards more international, we could see the smallest shift. I don't think we'll see a seismic change when the next Olympics roll around, but you said it, Justin. The NBA trade deadline, like in the States, it's a lot more prominent. But I will say, I do think the idea that this doesn't have as much juice is still very much there. Like we're saying, you have, the two main quarterbacks, your Drake Mays and your Sam Darnolds. They're not controversial guys. It's their first time there. But I think a lot of the storyline has already sort of, like, all the narratives have already been, like, the juice has been squeezed out of them because we've seen these two quarterbacks, we've seen these two teams win at all costs. Yes, like the AFC Championship game. Okay, maybe the weather plays a factor, things like that. But all of this kind of is pushed out the window, and they're not controversial. And everyone is sort of rooting for both Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald. I think both have positives to them. There's not a lot of like negativity. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, let's get to this. Let's get to this
There's
game.
some
and we'll
negativity.
see.
There's some
You think?
negativity. Yeah.
In what respect, though? Like, what would you
Tom
think?
Brady and the Patriots. That's the only negativity.
Let's go that direction.
Yeah.
I think let's go there because that got a lot more animosity than I think is necessary. So basically, this was all the way back on Monday, and I still feel like this is being dragged out. But on Monday, former quarterback for both the Buccaneers, I will start with there, and the New England Patriots.
Most recently, at least.
Most recent Super Bowl. Tom Brady made a comment on the Sirius XM podcast, Let's Go. Basically, he was asked, like, who are you rooting for? It's a very simple question. Who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? And he said, listen, I don't have a dog in the fight in this one. May the best team win. And that sent shockwaves amongst the majority of the New England side of things, but a lot of the sports world chimed in. Justin, like, what do you think? Did you think this was blown out of proportion, or do you think it's like, hey, this is sort of you could have handled this question a little bit differently?
Oh, well, big Vince Wilfork also had a major problem with it. We saw a lot of Patriots alumni, alumni, come out and say, like, hey, you're a Patriot. You're supposed to be a Patriot for life. You have a dog in the fight. And honestly, here's the thing. I think it's a little bit different for Tom Brady, and I'm not saying like I'm disappointed or anything with Tom Brady. It is what it is. The reason I don't think he's coming out and publicly saying, even though last night, if we're doing this up to date, he posted on his Instagram story, that I always got your back, RKK, which is big, and then said, go get your seventh to tie me or match me. The thing about it is he's a Raiders part owner. So he can't really publicly say that he's for the Patriots anymore. And that's just something that is if you're a business owner and you're with a different team, you would understand that he can't just publicly say, hey, I really want the Patriots to win. Now, some believe that he doesn't want the Patriots to win because then they're looking at a new era with Drake May, and then they will not forget him, but in the sense of like, oh, we don't need you anymore. We don't need to think about you. We now have Drake May. And I just don't think that's true. I think everyone's always going to pay respect to Tom Brady, and he's the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. He's the greatest football player ever. Like, it's not going to matter in terms of that stuff. So I look at the Raiders thing, and that's the reason I think that he made the comment he did. And I understand the backlash, though. I do get that. I can see it from Tom's point a little bit more than I think people are giving him credit for.
I definitely agree, Justin. I think when it comes down to it now, Brady has his hat in so many different things that it's hard for him to take a side. And it's probably not necessarily the smart thing to do, but it's definitely the most level-headed thing to do. It's easy to get wrapped up in the fandom, and I'm sure like for him, like there's no doubt in my mind that he is rooting for the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. I think when it comes down to simple human nature, he's a Patriot through and through. He spent 20 years in the organization. He's going to, even if it's undoubted, even if it's not, on purpose, he's going to have, there's some part of him that will feel that way, especially having beat the Seahawks in a Super Bowl already. But I think the key part is, like you said, Justin, his involvement with the Raiders. It's like if he's put his foot down basically now, and he's, if you ask him, who he belongs to now, he's going to say the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders, I guess. He's going to be part of that organization for a long time, and it's, I think, important for him to probably start to feel that he's just as much a Raider maybe as he is a Patriot going forward, if that's the case. So I think it's definitely something that made a lot of sense to me, and I just think that it's so easy for Patriots fans to think that he's like slighting them, especially with all the things that have happened with Belichick on his way out, and but since then it feels like him and the organization have kind of gotten to a better place. So I don't know.
He retired a Patriot. He has the statue outside. He's in the Patriots Hall of Fame. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame as a New England Patriot. The thing is, and I think people forget this, is Tom Brady shouldn't be an owner of the Las Vegas Raiders right now. He should be a part owner of the New England Patriots. He wanted that, and he tried to get that, but Robert Kraft wouldn't give that up at the time. So then he decided to take and try to go elsewhere right after he retired. I think that was a part of his, honestly, he was trying to negotiate a deal with his last contract and trying to get like 5% owner stake in the Patriots for that deal. And he just didn't want to give it up, Kraft, that is. And then he moved on to the Raiders. So I think people forget that as well, that he actually tried to be a part owner of the Patriots. And if that was the case, then you would see a completely different Tom Brady, in my opinion. And you would see him come out and say, I really, really want the Patriots to win.
I don't think Tom Brady he can't win in this situation, because it wasn't long before recently where he's in a lot of production meetings because of his work doing TV, right?
Yeah.
And the conversation is, well, should he have an ownership in the stake of the Raiders, but also be able to call games? Like, it muddies the waters. And so now he kind of is in this position where he's probably trying to stay neutral, and he's also getting criticized for that. So I feel like the weird part of it, and I'm coming at this from like a neutral angle, because I don't have a dog in the fight of like caring. Like, for me, like, it doesn't matter. Now I'm trying to think of it like if, let's say, a Wendell Clark, or I'm trying to think of an example of someone who's still in the league that used to represent the Toronto Maple Leafs, let's say, for example, and is no longer there. I think Kyle Dubas is a bad example because he's still the GM of another team, and the way he left was negative. But if let's say the Leafs and the Colorado Avalanche were in the finals and he was asked, I wouldn't expect him to say, I hope that the Leafs do well, because he used to be there. So I don't know. Yeah. It feels a little strange. Now, what I will say is I understand people that are upset about it, but also the other side, which is, I understand. Yeah. I think it was a little bit blown up to the point of he's getting criticized for having so many hands in a cookie jar and trying to pick one, but then now he's trying to stay neutral and people aren't happy about it. On the flip side, it's much, much less of a storyline, but it's 99% likely that Clint Kubiak, who is the OC of Seattle, is going to be the Raiders head coach. Yeah. So not that he would say, oh, hey, I hope the Patriots win, and then that completely blows up the contract negotiations. I feel like that would be crazy to think, but it's a small part of it.
I do think that of ties.
Yeah.
Yeah. But quickly,
you think that factors in?
I like that. I thought of Drake May potentially winning a Super Bowl and like people looking at that differently. But I actually think that helps Brady's case in that most quarterbacks who win a Super Bowl mostly win one, right? Like, maybe the Patriots go on some kind of, run here, but even if May gets a Super Bowl here and he happens to not win another one in his career, it just continues to show how great Brady was and Belichick in the era that nobody will ever touch the success that they had again. And it's just like, it just furthers on. It gives Patriots fans, a little bit of short-term, love and understanding that Drake May's a great quarterback and Super Bowl caliber guy. But like, I don't think even Justin, as a fan, you're going to sit here today and even if they win the Super Bowl and say, well, he's, on his way to becoming the next Tom Brady. It's just like, that's not going to happen.
No, I don't even think Patrick Mahomes is on his way to becoming the next Tom Brady. So you wouldn't say Drake May is. Like, I think that at the end of the day, like, Tom Brady probably, like, it's tough to say, but I would assume that Tom Brady probably sent those teammates of his, like Vince Wilfork and others, a text behind the scenes, maybe if he wanted to address. He doesn't have to, but like maybe he did and said like, hey, obviously I'm a patriot for life. I just can't do this publicly, and trying to state his case. I get that people are upset about it though. I do. I'm not gonna get upset about it. Because I don't think it's worth, you know, that reaction.
No. I also just think if because there isn't anything else going on this week, this story got so much more attention.
And
right?
this
Like,
is the juice that like you're taught, and like
oh man.
the juice is, for me, it's been all Patriots this week in terms of like, okay, Robert Kraft didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Bill Belichick doesn't make the Hall of Fame. Drake May loses the MVP by 1 vote.
Crazy.
It just goes back to those days when Patriots were in the dynasty and it was Patriots against the world. No one else wanted and it wasn't the fact that no one else wanted the Patriots to win. It was the fact that everyone just hated the Patriots because of their winning. And it's not even like they're winning right now. It's just the Patriots have the chance to embody it's us against the world again, and that's the way I think most of the fan base is aligning themselves right now because of the way everything has gone this week leading into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks are pretty boring. So I mean,
yeah,
it's not a lot there. So it leans the Patriots for sure.
I think the whole Sam Darnold, like his storyline has been discussed ad nauseum. So there's not much else to say. I think now the conversation is like from his side or from the Seattle Seahawks side. Yeah, they're new. Mike McDonald's a genius. They just play as a team and they're connected, and the way the culture has been set there, it's just all good. Like there isn't really any negativity coming from there. I guess on the Patriots side, I think it's just that the world outside of New England is probably rooting a little bit harder against them because you want to see some fresh blood in there and things like that. But even that, I think people are pretty neutral about it because it's a new regime and Mike Vrabel is a very likable coach. So for the most part, it's not like you're seeing the same squad there from, however many years ago. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to be the same set of jerseys on. So,
so
I don't know if there's any. Yeah, I mean, that's the way to go. Like, why don't one of you guys start and tell us what you think? Maybe we'll just kind of get an idea here.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. I mean, I think for me, I'm definitely leaning towards the Seahawks winning this game. I think for me, their defense, I think, is just something that is going to give them more opportunities to score enough points to win this game. And even though I don't think that their offense is really that much better than what the Patriots offer, I just think, like I said, they might get a couple more opportunities with better field position, maybe a takeaway or two, just because I think their defense is just on that other level that I don't think the Patriots is at. I think the Patriots have a good defense, and that's why I do think that they definitely have a chance to win. If we're going to talk any spreads here at any point, I haven't made any decision about whether I'm going to take the Seahawks, by the 4.5 that I think still being offered all week or the last 2 weeks. Basically, I don't think the line has really moved at all.
I think it was 3.5 to start, and then
but very quickly it went up to 4.5, and I think that's where it's at because people are kind of on both sides. It's a very good line, and I think that's why it's a tough pick. But I think in terms of who I think is going to come out and win the game, I do think it's going to be the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'll let you go first, Alex, since I'm the only one that's really got
a little biased.
a little biased here.
Okay. I was just trying to pull up the spread and everything as we were chatting here, but I agree. Now, I think what I would have said about 2 weeks ago when the championship games were played, I had a lot more favorability towards Seattle by a lot. I felt like this was going to be a lot less close of a game and a lot like I thought we'd see a high scoring game just based off what I've seen and the fact that both these quarterbacks can sling the ball. And from the Patriots side, they don't really have a number one guy. So that almost makes them more dangerous because you really don't know what can be schemed up. From the Seattle side, you still do have a number one, in all honesty, probably a top 3 wide receiver in JSN, but also guys like the Barners of the world. And you have Kenneth Walker, who is now a bell cow because Charbonnet goes down. So, but then you talk about it, Brandon, they have some great defenses on both sides. I do think New England has somewhat of an underrated defense. And now that you're playing, like the Patriots have had to play difficult defenses, as much as people are saying that the schedule was very favorable towards them. I'm just sort of throwing a lot of paint at the wall right now. I still do think the Seattle Seahawks do take this one, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer than people might have made it out to be earlier on. And I just think the way that things have played out this week, Drake May looks to be a full participant. I think he did like a 90-minute practice Wednesday when he was
he's
first
good
team.
to go.
He's good to go. And unless guys' shoulders are falling out of their socket, everyone's playing. Everyone's playing, and they'll deal with the consequences later. I don't have a score prediction. Maybe we can do that like when we wrap up the conversation.
I got a score prediction as well.
You can start the score prediction, and then maybe we can jump in there. I just maybe need a second to think. I think the over under right now is 45.5. I think I'm taking the under. I just think the defenses are going to come correct. I do think because it's the first Super Bowl for both Sam Darnold and Drake May, I don't know if they're going to feel confident enough to just sling the ball or if they're going to be starting off a little bit more conservative. And the first half is going to be slower with the teams trying to sort of feel out the defenses.
Yeah.
And I just think Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald are both super smart head coaches. And I think they're going to scheme up some defense that like just kind of freezes up the other quarterback. So I'm going to take the under if I had to sort of put money on it, which I'm probably not. I'm going to keep things conservative here. But I do think the Seattle Seahawks have this one. I just think it's a lot closer than people are going to make it out to be.
So I understand your thought process, Mando. I personally have the Patriots winning this game 27-24. It is what it is. I'm going to pick my team, obviously. But here's why I think it's going to be close in the first place. I don't think this game is going to be a blowout. I really can't see it. I think the Patriots defense is underrated in a way. I think that Milton Williams, when he's on the field, is a game changer, X factor, if you will. Marcus Jones, another X factor for the Patriots. Christian Gonzalez is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I understand that the Seahawks have a great defense, but here's why I think the Patriots can find success. If they get the run game going like they've been able to do against the 3 of the top 5 defenses in the playoffs already, the Chargers, the Texans, and the Broncos. I get that the Broncos game was a little bit different because of the weather, but they were still able to move the ball a little bit. I think if the Patriots can get the run game going, that is going to open up Drake May to sling it. And I do think that they're going to allow Drake May to sling it because that's how they were beating teams early on in their winning streak. And they were shocking people during that winning streak with those explosive runs from Travion Henderson and then opening it up to Drake May to throw deep downfield, which we know he's the best at in the NFL, at least this season, based on his completion percentage. So I think that is going to be the key to success for the Patriots. And honestly, I think that Drake May, here's the thing. If they're going to win this game, obviously a lot of things have to happen. You have to have good defense, obviously. You have to be disciplined on special teams. You have to be good running the ball. But the one person that it's going to come down to, it's going to be Drake May. It is going to be, can Drake May have an MVP type performance against the Seattle defense? That's what it's going to come down to. At the end of the day, I can see him getting it done. And it's partly because of what I said about the run game. Now, I picked 27-24, which is just over the over, I think. And I can see it being really tight throughout the game. If it doesn't go over the 45.5 points, I wouldn't be shocked, but I do see this being just around the 50-point mark.
Okay, fair. I'll take one quick, Brandon, just because might as well pick. I'm trying to think of how this would all work. I'm going to go 21-17.
Yeah.
I think
it's going to be tight, I think.
Right at
that
number. That makes sense.
I think I did take the
you're right at the under. You're right at the under.
You're good.
Okay. You're great, man. Good job. All right, go ahead, Brandon. What do you think?
I mean, for me, that's where I've been struggling this whole time. Is just is it going to come down to? I could see it coming down to one of two things. So like Justin said, either team having the ball at the end of the game, just looking for a field goal because it's going to be close, I think, or it's going to be maybe the Seahawks have a lead and the Patriots have the ball at the end, and it's can they get down? Maybe they need a touchdown. I could see it something like that. So I think I think I'm going to go Seahawks, and the score is not reflective of how I think the game will necessarily go, but I'm going to say Seattle 26-20, just because I think
Okay.
Seattle might be able to score a little bit more early. Patriots might have to get going late, and then I think the ball will be in Drake May's hands at the end of the game, and then it'll come down to whether or not he can lead his team down. Maybe they need a touchdown. Maybe they just need a field goal, whether it's to win. Maybe we see an overtime game in the Super Bowl, which would be incredible. But I think for me, that's where it is. I think I'd be just over that 45 number. So maybe my best bet is going to be like Seahawks money line, and then you can tease the over under to, a few more points on the underside, and then you're kind of right there. So
I think the one thing that we all can take away from this conversation is when this game was like set in stone 2 weeks ago, or basically 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Everyone said this was going to be a blowout, but now as we approach the game, everyone feels like this is actually going to be a lot tighter of a matchup than what a lot of people anticipated when this thing first opened up. That's the takeaway I'm getting from a lot of people around the sports world right now.
Definitely, which is good. It makes it for more of a fun lead up the last couple days heading into Santa Clara. I do have just one question for you, Justin. If Seattle receives, let's say to start the game, and Rashid Shaheed,
you can't let him get a touchdown.
But let's say he just burns you for one. How are you feeling if it's 7-0 after
I
like
don't
20
feel
seconds?
Good. I don't feel good.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
don't feel good, I'll tell you that much. I'd say you have to go down and score. Like, you can't go 3-0 on that drive. Like, you have to score or else you're in major, major trouble. Like,
I think you got to like take his knees out. If he's even close, I think you got to like make a statement and just everything at him.
Yeah, I think the best chance the Patriots have in this game is to try to get out to a lead, or do the opposite of that. Try to get out to their own lead, and then you just try to hold off, make Sam Darnold play in pressure situations, and then it becomes, Darnold versus
I think if
May,
they can get pressure, get pressure to Sam Darnold, he's going to throw a pick. I do. I think that the way that they've been able to generate pressure this postseason, the Patriots defense, I can see them being able to get to the Seahawks, or get through the Seahawks offensive line and get pressure to Sam Darnold. And I think that he's going to be too rushed. I think he's going to miss a throw. He's either going to overthrow one, underthrow one. He's going to miss a window. He's going to throw it direct. I see that. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to have a bad game. I just see a pick definitely coming if you can get pressure to Sam Darnold this game.
No, for sure. And they'll be able to shut down the run game if they can win that battle of the line of scrimmage, right? Like if they're moving forward as opposed to moving backwards, it's only going to help them in both assets. So
100%.
There you go. Should be a fun game. We'll obviously recap it next week. We'll have a lot to chat about. Before we go Olympics, I think we should just touch on the NBA trade deadline.
I'm either gonna be the winningest franchise in Super Bowl history or the losingest franchise in Super Bowl history.
Either way, 7 either way. I know. So
it's like the LeBron argument, right? It's like you'd rather get there, even though people give him flack for losing so many finals.
But everyone's gonna be like
been there more than anyone else. So it's like,
and the thing is, like, everyone's gonna be like, Drake May is the reason that they're now the losingest franchise in Super Bowl history. Like, come on,
no.
Yeah. Anyway,
he's so not unlikable. Like I feel like a lot of people want to dislike Drake May just because of the situation he's put in, and just down to earth guy, right? Like just happy to be there. Good player. Like there's that quarterback class of 2024, man. Like it feels like we're gonna be comparing those top 3 guys for a long time, and it's a fun place to be.
Yeah.
So
quickly, Justin, I wanted to get Justin's thought quickly about the MVP decision, and obviously went to Matt Stafford by a single vote. It seems. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Drake May was more efficient this year. I thought he was the better quarterback in terms of like value for his team, considering the offensive line. I didn't think it was the best. I thought that he didn't have a number 1 option. He did great with that this season. He made clutch plays. He was the best for efficiency down the field. We obviously know the completion percentage, the best in the NFL. I thought his QBR was higher than Matthew Stafford's as well. I just think that at the end of the day, you got a guy that's 37, 38 years old, and it's best season. You're probably going to lean to that guy, and he lives in Los Angeles. I don't know. It just feels like that was the way that they were always going to lean. I am shocked how close it was, to be honest. I just figured
Yeah.
I think Drake May should have been the MVP, but I figured that he wasn't going to win it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Fair.
No,
Yeah,
you're right on. Yeah.
It is, but it's a testament to how good they both were. The fact that there was one first place vote off, which I think the closest it's been in like over 20 years or something ridiculous, right? Like it's been very, very close.
Did you guys see the? It comes back to Mando here. Did you guys see the voter who put out his explanation for why he did not vote for
Justin Herbert?
Yeah.
Listen, I can understand Justin Herbert in a way, like that man gets.
But I mean,
put
if you're gonna go
through-
with like a narrative vote, which it felt like he was, like the offensive line was an issue. Like they struggled. They kind of he carried them to the playoffs. If that's kind of the narrative you want to go with, like I just don't. I don't know how you can kind of out of all the narratives out there, how is the Herbert one the one that kind of pulls you in? That's kind of what I was confused about.
I listen. I understand why he got an MVP vote. I just think that what that man went through was ridiculous this season. Like it happens every season. I thought his play was better, especially at the beginning of the year. He tailed off a little bit, but he also had a broken hand that he played through. So like you give him credit, that's for sure. Maybe not a first place vote, but definitely like be in the MVP conversation.
No, not a first place vote, but I appreciate the love. Definitely not a first place vote. But if the MVP vote was made after the week 3, Justin Herbert's taking it home. Unfortunately, you have to play another 14 games. And that's where Justin Herbert, unfortunately, you couldn't get around
that. It's a team award too. Like it's not just one guy, right? Like it's definitely a team award, because if they have drops, if they can't get any, or they can't supply any protection for him, like then he's screwed, right? Like it's not just on him, it's about the whole team, and that's something that's very important when thinking about MVPs.
I also think that this wouldn't have factored in, but let's say Herbert had he had the highest completion rating. Let's say he had the most touchdowns, like a Matt Stafford, and then completion rating went to Drake May, and you lose in the first round. I know it's a regular season award, but I still do think that people have that small bias of like, well, Drake May is in the Super Bowl and Matt Stafford was in the NFC Championship. Now, the votes have to be in early, but I still think that plays like a very minor role.
They have to be in right after week 18. So
I don't know, man. Is that actually true? I thought they had to wait until a couple weeks after.
You have to submit it literally right after week 18. So it's
maybe it doesn't.
Award.
Maybe it doesn't.
It comes down to who was the best during the regular season.
Yeah, I think it definitely was best very, very narrative driven this year. Yeah,
because realistically, the MVP of the league is Myles Garrett. Realistically,
no, it's impressive with the sack record. So,
there's a case for so many players. It feels like, especially when you
it's just
think about how diverse the NFL. That's what I was going to say. Is like when you think about the positions and how diverse and how important each one is. Like you can make a case for a ton of players, but you're right. Like it's always just who was the best quarterback this year based on this, and this, and that's kind of just how they do it.
Yeah. No, they call them honors as well. It's funny. Like every other league calls them awards. It's NFL honors. I'm like, all right, guys, come on now. I have to be different.
To be honored, man.
Honored. But we can move on. Before we touch on Olympics, I say we just quickly run through like the NBA trade deadline, and we can chat Raptors maybe last. But I'm not a basketball. It's not my first sport, but I do look forward to some of these big trades. But I just found it so chaotic this year. And I don't know if that's this year or if it's just an every year thing. And I was a little bit more dialed into the trade deadline this year. I'd be curious to get a final count on the number of picks moved in, let's say, the 3 days before and the day of the trade deadline. Because it did feel like there was like 100. And I know that's just the way it goes. There's only 2 rounds of the draft. And so they are coveted a little bit differently. But I don't know if there was one massive trade that kind of stuck in your guys' head, or was it the opposite? It was the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo was supposed to get moved, or that was the conversation, and it sort of died out. Like, what do you think was the biggest storyline of the NBA? Maybe Brandon, will go to you first to kick things off.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right, Alex. The biggest narrative, I think, for me coming out of the deadline was just how active it was compared to some of the more recent years. Like we've seen in the NBA, it's mostly in the summer and during the offseason that kind of these big changes happen to a lot of teams, whether it is trades or via free agency. But this year, for whatever reason, there were a lot of big fish out there. And a lot of them did get moved. Like you're right on the money that I think the Giannis, you know, kind of
Yeah.
chaos of him not being moved. If he had been moved, we were talking about the best NBA trade deadline of all
Yeah.
time. But I think for him sticking in Milwaukee, it's just created more questions and uncertainty. I don't know if you guys saw the Bucks had him out on the court with his family, in their game after the deadline passed, and it's just become like a really weird situation with him, like
Mhm.
whether he asked for a trade or not, and his like perceived loyalty. Like I don't really know what to think anymore when it comes to Giannis Antetokounmpo. But when you talk about some of the other stars that got moved, like James Harden, who nobody expected until a couple days before the deadline,
Mhm.
on a Clippers team that people still thought was going to be good and had gotten a lot better after their pretty terrible start. So he just instantly basically gets shipped out to Cleveland. LA gets a really good player back in Darius Garland, who just can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I think both teams kind of get what they want, which is just a change of pace at the point guard position. And then the other big one was Anthony Davis. Again, kind of people expected him to potentially be moved this year, but I don't think that anybody had it being the Washington Wizards.
No.
And then B, I don't think anyone thought he would get moved after he got injured again. So it was just like a really, really strange and unique trade deadline where like these star players just kind of, I guess, made a snap decision kind of to get out of there,
Yeah.
or the general manager said we're going to flip a lot of things. But those are the two moves that stand out to me in terms of just like, yeah, just the craziness that has been the last week in the NBA. And I think next year, when we have even more opportunity for movement in the offseason, we could see a little bit of a flip where some of these teams, that have been at the bottom, maybe start to figure out how to build the team through trade or free agency, and
Mhm.
then obviously with the draft. So
That's the most surprising part to me, is the fact that a lot like these teams that made moves for big ticket players all are relatively trash this season in terms of like Utah,
Right.
Washington, and then Indiana. Like they give up hauls for these players. I wouldn't say Washington gave up a haul, but like they give up pretty good packages for these players, and they're at the bottom of the standings. And it's just shocking to me because like Indiana gave up 2 first-round picks, a top 4 protected, and then 10 to 30 protected. So we all know that Indiana's going to be better next year. We all think that they're going to be back into the playoff contender. So I can understand it, but it's just very shocking to me that, you would think about that in NHL or NFL terms, and it's like you would never ever consider trading for a superstar player, especially if you have one of the worst records in the NBA, and yet the Washington Wizards, Indiana Pacers, and Utah Jazz all decided to go get big star players. It's just shocking to me. That's the biggest thing that I took away from this year's NBA trade deadline.
Yeah. Seems really like these teams are gearing up for next year or the year after. It's in a way though sort of refreshing because I don't think the NBA really has this much of a problem in that they have the same teams making the finals. In some respects they do, but we've seen the OKC Thunder find a way, and that's basically just through an incredible
They've
GM in
had,
Presti. They still have picks. Like they were able to, they brought in Jared McCain, I think was a great
yeah,
move, right?
I think
Like
that's a great
shoring
move.
up your, maybe it's a guy coming right off the bench, but like it's a guy that's a big piece in that lineup. And then there are still the teams in the Boston Celtics who brought in Vucevic, which I think is a smart move, moving out
loved
Simons.
that
And
move.
then,
Yeah,
right, great move. Like
yeah,
it's like, okay, now is that signaling that Jason Tatum's back?
Yeah,
Is a possibility that you can see him in the playoffs?
I think
And
it's like
then
7 years in a row we've had different champions in the
yeah,
NBA, and it's like it's based on these deadline moves. Like they can set
yeah.
themselves up to go on a big run, and see it
yeah.
happen every single year.
I like it though, because the Wizards have been irrelevant for as long as I can remember. The Utah Jazz, yeah, they were good back in the 90s, but like, have they ever really, they after moving Donovan Mitchell, it just feels like, okay, this team is, what direction are they going? You bring in Jaren Jackson, and then you have the possibility to kind of move forward in the next couple of years when maybe they're just trying to time, like, okay, OKC is going to be dominant for the next couple. Maybe we can kind
Hmm.
of meet them halfway at some point. It's maybe building up for the future. I am very intrigued by the James Harden news in that, is this finally going to be like
It's not gonna
different.
work.
Like I can't imagine it's
It's
different.
so
Like
funny,
in
like
Cleveland, yeah,
well, for them too, like that's probably the biggest move of circumstance in terms of like
sure.
they're going to be in the playoffs. Like that's a chance for a season defining move for them. But it's funny. I was joking with somebody that is it possible that Cleveland actually moved their chances away from winning a title this year because James Harden is not he doesn't win championships. It's just not
No,
it's not a thing that James Harden led
Mhm.
teams, even teams that he's just a part of. It just doesn't happen. Not to say that they would have won with Darius Garland or that they gives them any more of a chance, but I just this isn't a move that to me makes them a title contender. It actually kind of confuses me as to who's gonna I know James Harden's gonna have the ball in his hands, but you also have Donovan Mitchell, you have Evan Mobley, you have guys that kind of need to work on their own. So
Mhm.
how does a guy like Harden integrate into that offense? And on defense, I mean, that's something they're going to have to deal with as well because we know that Harden is not the type of effort guy on the defensive end either. So
yeah,
So if we want to move on to Raptors just quickly, like
sure.
I'm actually very happy with the Raptors deadline in the sense of there was a lot of rumors that they could be big fish hunting with this team in terms of trying to get a Sabonis type player. And honestly, I think that's just a lateral move in the end of at the end of the day for them. You're taking a player off the roster if you made that move, and I just don't see how you're getting that much better. This team's not anything better than a second round playoff loss or
Hmm.
exit. Like this team is, when I say middle of the pack, it is the definition of middle of the pack in a very weak Eastern Conference. Like I don't think I have credit Bobby Webster for what he said after the
For
thing.
sure.
Like we're just not gonna take what we learned off the first half of the season and go and make a massive move because that just wouldn't be worth it at the end of the day. Because then you're looking at like doing a Jakob Pertl move from a couple of years ago where you got marginally better and you still ended up sucking. Like I shouldn't say sucking, but like you ended up not doing well and then it costed you and now you're in a predicament where it's still hurting you to this day. So I think that the Raptors getting underneath the tax bracket, obviously a good thing for them. And then just not just just letting this active roster basically figure it out and ride with them, I think is the right decision. So I'm actually happy with what the Raptors did at the trade deadline.
And I'll just verify before we go to you, Brandon, like what specifically the moves were, if no one sort of has the context. But basically, the Raptors acquired Trace Jackson Davis from the Warriors for a 2026 second round pick, which was via the Lakers. And then a day or so prior, they acquired Chris Paul and sent Ochai Abaji out the other direction. And essentially, that move was confirmed just to be for money
A
purposes, like
tax
you
them.
said, to get below that apron there. But it was interesting to see Chris Paul come across the timeline in Toronto. It was like, oh,
yeah.
maybe. But then, cooler heads prevailed. So, Brandon, what do you got on this whole thing?
It's so funny. I do think that they made the smart decision to kind of hold steady with what they've got. Um, if this was 10 years ago, Chris Paul might be exactly what this team
Man,
needs. I know a lot of people wanted them to kind of be aggressive in the big man market. And I do think that overall, that probably is what they needed the most going into, a stretch run here in the playoffs where they're definitely undersized compared to a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. But there was a bevy of big men available, but the prices I think were just too high for the type of guys. I actually think, Justin, you brought up Indiana. I actually thought Zubac was like one of the better
yeah.
fits for the Raptors, but I just don't think they could have gotten into that market without spending too much capital for the future. So I like that they
Mhm.
stood pat. We'll see what they end up doing, in the offseason. If they're still looking for a big fish, whether it's a Giannis available or if they look to someone else or however they end up making that transition. But I'd like to see them get aggressive in the guard market too. I think it's been a little bit since the Raptors have had a guy that they can depend on like a Kyle Lowry or Fred VanVleet. Like I think they need to develop that now that they have kind of their wings set and they up front they're pretty well secured with Scotty and of course with Ingram at the 3 position most likely there for the future. So they still have a lot of work to do in terms of getting to a contender level. And like Justin said, I just don't think that was going to happen in this short of a window. So why bother, risking your future going forward? Let's just keep with the
Mhm.
process and see what we can do in the playoffs kind of as constructed.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add other than I guess from a guard perspective, Brandon. I think that's a fair point. I think they're just trying to feel out Jamal Shed. Like, what is he actually like?
Fair.
Defensively fantastic. Offensively, is he able to kind of carry the weight? I don't really know, but I guess maybe they're just trying to see what's going on there. I think I agree with you both. I think Bobby Webster with his first season with the full reins from this team. And I guess maybe it's like, let's just see what we have. Let's let this young team, let's let this young core develop together. And it's a little bit easier to sort of evaluate your roster, like you guys said in the offseason, and just some smart moves. You bring in a backup center who can kind of fill the void while Jakob Poeltl's figuring out his back issue. I heard Bobby Webster yesterday saying like, we're not really sure, we're just kind of see how things play out from an injury standpoint with him. And you're not really changing too much of the makeup of your team. Darko still has the same guys that he rolled with this season. And it'll just be fun to watch what the Raptors can do in the playoffs, whether that's through a play-in, whether that's hosting a first playoff game. Like, hey, man, we haven't seen Raptors playoff basketball in a while. And the last time we have, it just hasn't really been, we didn't really have a lot of faith. I think it's just an exciting time to watch, especially with other teams not doing so well.
And I think it gives them more time for Jakob Poeltl to get healthy, maybe showcase a little bit, in the last little bit of the season into the playoffs. If he can look like a little bit more like himself, even if he's not necessarily in the long-term plans, it does help the Raptors' flexibility in terms of maybe they can get off his contract for a little bit more than what they would have gotten at the deadline, which probably was peanuts at this point. So, we'll just have to see. They just got to hope that things bounce their way a little bit. And yeah, like you said, Alex, like even a home playoff series to start, even if you lose in that first round, I don't think too many people would be that upset. It's just like you see the progress of where this team might be going. So
yeah, exactly. Definitely. Let's make moves over to the Olympics, where the opening ceremonies did take place on, I believe it was yesterday at 1:30 p.m. local time, which is Eastern time for us. Before we get into like the hockey side and just the Olympics in general, I found it interesting where we talked about Tom Brady and not picking sides. Well, Tate McRae seemed to pick a side. So I'm curious how you guys feel about this. All right. So she was in an ad basically promoting the Olympics for Team USA. It was like a 45-second ad with an eagle and, whatever. And I'm just interested, like, is that weird? Was that just an oversight on her part? Because she came out after saying, like, obviously I'm Canadian, I'm rooting for Canada. But it feels like the one thing you probably shouldn't do with just all that's what's going on. I'm curious if you guys any thoughts before we kind of talk about anything else Olympic related.
I couldn't have cared less about that. I didn't even watch the commercial. I saw everything about it. I just didn't even watch the commercial. It is what it is. She probably got paid a lot of money for that. It can't. Yeah. So anyway, I have no thoughts on that.
I do think you're right, Alex. It was probably just an oversight, like by her camp. She might not have even had known the specifics of it. She maybe had just been told, like, "Hey, you're going in to do a commercial for NBC, whatever." Like, fair. And her fans, in terms of like the music side, probably aren't going to care too much about this, in a year when she puts out an album or something. But I think it was very weird. Like, it's not something that, like, as Canadian, as a hockey fan, as she seems to be, she's shown up in Toronto before at NHL All-Star. Like, maybe if she had. Again, it could have just been an oversight, but I do think it was weird of their camp to be like, "Hey, as a Canadian, we'll like set her up to do this commercial." Basically, promoting the U.S. coverage of it, which is weird. Like, why couldn't CBC couldn't? I mean, I guess money talks, I guess, but I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe it was a crazy amount of money that you just can't turn down, and I don't think anybody would blame her for that. So
I think you nailed it. Sorry.
Thing.
No, not dead at all. It could be much worse. I think the weird part of it is she is a hockey, like she's a hockey and presumably she's sports fan. I think she's fan. Like, she's skating in that. Yeah. She's skiing, in the commercial. So she's clearly a sports fan. So it was like, you kind of know, maybe not to, I don't know. Again, like maybe we don't know behind the scenes, but it's like, maybe just don't do that. Especially if you're, let's say let's say she's dating Jack Hughes, which is not a conversation that we don't even know. But like, if that's the case, he's American. It's kind of a weird narrative, but maybe it gets the Canadian side going. Maybe it's like, hey, like we got to prove that, you got to be Canadian in order to have success on the ice. So
maybe
definitely stoking the fire for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest news, really, at least from the men's hockey, we can talk women's side just briefly about, man, some of the crazy stuff that's already gone, and they haven't even hit the ice yet from like a game perspective. But we'll
They're hitting
talk.
the ice right now. Like they're
Perfect.
like in like 20 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know.
Even
Yeah.
better. But before we discuss that, we'll just chat about like the quick change that was made on the men's side. So Brayden Point, even though he was skating over the past few days, really tried to get in to the Olympics. It did seem like it was trending towards him playing. All of a sudden, unfortunately,
Thought
decided to back out, and Seth Jarvis was chosen to replace him. Not as much surprise or a lot of buzz that I expected, but there was a lot of players who I think could have filled that void instead.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
where do we think was this the right choice, or did they kind of just did they go a different direction than a lot of people were thinking?
I mean, like, you could go Zach Hyman, you could go Mark Scheifele, you could go Connor Bedard, um, or you could go Seth Jarvis. Like, those are the four like main options I think that they had. Obviously, they have loyalty to the guy that they took for Four Nations. I don't see a problem with this at all. I understand people saying, "Oh, you should have took Zach Hyman." I can see people saying you should have took Mark Scheifele. I can see people saying you should have took Connor Bedard. I don't mind taking Seth Jarvis at all. He's a great defensive forward. I think that he's got a wicked shot as well. I think that he's a fun guy to be around. He's great in the locker room. And he's just gonna learn. I don't have a problem with this one at all. Like, no problem.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. I agree, Justin. I think Jarvis is very, very deserving of that spot. We saw him at Four Nations. I think he fit in well with that team as well. And I think people thought when he wasn't named to the original roster, like, oh, okay, that makes some sense. Like he maybe was just outside of the cut, and that this kind of confirms that. The guy I kind of was hoping they would take, and I think of the names that you mentioned, Justin, he was probably on the lower end of this, but it was Scheifele. Like,
Yeah,
just
same.
could this guy get a shot to even just be on the roster, even if he doesn't have to play a lot? Like, I think people would have just liked to see him rewarded. He's played so well this season, and even last season. People thought he was a bit of a snub at the Four Nations tournament, so it would have just nice to have seen him get that recognition. But you can't go wrong, I think, with any of the guys that you named. They all serve a very useful purpose, maybe in different ways. But I think Team Canada replacing Brayden Point, they were just looking for a specific skill set, and I think that Jarvis fits that bill a little bit more so maybe than the other guys.
Yeah. I think a lot of things factored into it. I think the timing of it, I think because it was days before they were set to fly out, they're probably going, okay, well, we can make a lot of decisions. And this isn't to say that they made a last second decision, because clearly there's a pecking order. They probably said, if these six guys get injured, this is who's replacing them. If these six guys get injured, this is who we're replacing them with based on skill set. But you are going with the guy that's been there. And I think the off ice conversation actually is a fair point, Justin, to make, in that he seems like he's a very just like great glue guy in the locker room. We've seen him on Face Off on the documentary. He's a guy that's just like happy to be there and clearly has a chip on his shoulder to prove himself at that national level. Mark Scheifele, I think, would have been the guy that I would have selected instead, but the decision was Brayden Point, and I think that it just suggests that he probably would have been on the wing at the Olympics.
Yeah,
right. Like that just means you need a winger, I guess.
I think the one thing that like people are underestimating is how big of a loss Brayden Point is. Like, just because he wasn't having the best season, I think people are like just looking at that and saying, yeah, he's not that good anymore. Like, no, this Brayden Point has been one of the best forwards in the NHL for the past 6 years.
Sure.
Like, he definitely deserved to be on this team. There was a reason why he was named as one of the first six, and missing him is a bigger loss than what I think people are realizing. And that's just going to be proven in this tournament.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like, I'm going to knock on like wood until the end of the episode that no one else gets hurt. But like, let's say a McDavid or a McKinnon was the one that had to be replaced, or a Crosby, and it's like a clear top 5 player loss. Who would you be replacing? Okay, I know each of them is different, but let's say a McKinnon or a Crosby or McDavid. Who are you replacing
Bedard.
That with? You think?
That's what I was gonna say too. Yeah,
Bedard.
I think if
creativity, those guys have. Obviously, he doesn't have it to that ability, but out of any one of those players that isn't on the team right now, it's Connor Bedard that can do the stuff. had the possibility of doing this stuff, and we saw it in the first half of the season this year. So that's where my answer would lean.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
and
I'm saying, Brandon.
if McDavid got hurt, I mean that for me that would basically eliminate the option of Zach Hyman because it's like I think
Yeah,
if you
he's
bring
gone.
Zach Hyman at this point, it's to maybe give him a shot with McDavid at some point. So
Yeah.
so that would kind of eliminate that. But I would agree, like Bedard is the guy who would most likely fill a spot, but that the skills that some of these guys have, and I think that would make a lot of sense, and maybe that was their thinking with this decision as well. It's like we'll save one more high-powered guy if we need it, but at least we know we can kind of slot Jarvis in maybe multiple spots if we need to. So
yeah, that's the thing with.
But yeah, that's a great point
spots.
though. I'm just glad we haven't seen any
one of the top guys go down because that would be brutal.
That you would hope. I find it fascinating. I don't disagree, but the fact that Connor Bedard, we just had a conversation about not being surprised that he wasn't replaced. That he didn't replace Brayden Point, but then you talk about like a McDavid. It's a big shoe. It's big shoes to fill, and not to say that Bedard would.
Yeah, but no one's going to be able to fill those. Like,
no, it's almost a compliment to him, though.
At that point, if it's McDavid or whatever, whoever, at that point you're looking to fill like a number 2 center spot as opposed to like, even Point. I think Point is a great player, and he would have been up there, Point for sure.
We don't need to worry about it because we don't need to, because McDavid is not injured, and we're gonna hope.
No, we got here. Most of the teams are pretty intact, and I think it's going to be an incredible tournament.
Yes,
I do think after the tournament, though, there are going to be some guys that sit out a couple weeks that just have been going through going through injuries and just trying to push it to get here, and then. Like a week or two. Well, I'm just like,
it depends who it is though, because like if you're the guys on Tampa Bay, like you can go back and you can take as much time as you need because you're in a good spot. You're leading the East pretty much with Carolina there, and you're looking good about your playoff chances. But like if Austin Matthews comes back and he has to take 2 weeks off after the Olympics, people in Toronto, even if they're going to be out of the playoff race at some point, maybe after the Olympic break, if he comes back,
it might be the other guy.
Who's that?
What, Nylander?
Willie. What if the other guy comes back and sits for 2 weeks?
It's the same thing. I think obviously the outcry wouldn't be as bad, but after missing games before the tournament, then coming back to play just to get kind of ready, and then playing in the tournament, if you come back, you miss games. Yeah, people will be like, "What the hell? Like, why are we doing this?" Unless there's like an obvious injury in the tournament that looks different than what they've been doing. But like if it's just purely like maintenance or like, hey, we've been playing a lot, it's like, bro, we can't. Nobody will have time for that. I feel like.
Yeah.
It was definitely weird the way the schedule panned out, because like for example, Toronto stopped their last game was Tuesday, but there's also teams that played 2 days later. But then there was teams like the Leon Draisaitl's and David Pasternak's who had to be in the opening ceremonies, so they had to fly out early. Kind of weird how it's like, okay, maybe we give them an extra couple days instead. But and then coming back, like a lot of teams play on the 25th. A couple teams have back-to-backs. Like, I don't know, man. Like it's a weird. But listen, I think everyone right now no one's worried about that. At least from a fan perspective, everyone's like, I want to see the best on best right now, and that's all that matters. We'll worry about this.
We're there. We're there. We're there. So.
But I want to say on the women's side, like it came out a couple days ago that Canada was supposed to play Finland. And unfortunately from the Finnish side, I think like 8 or so players came down with the norovirus. And basically I think they were actually down to like 8 in practice or something like that. That's where the number 8 in my head was. And they postponed the game. Right. So I think the 12th, I believe, of February, which is, I think, the day prior to the quarterfinal game.
Yeah. So if they make the quarters, they have to play a back-to-back. So
back-to-back, which is like the big outcry. It is unfortunate. The smart move, like you don't want to play 8 players, or you don't want to play a team when they're not at full health. I think it was actually Ben Steiner who also reported yesterday that the Swiss team is also being quarantined. Or they're kind of figuring out a couple things.
They have a couple players. It's not as bad as what the Finnish is, from my understanding. But yeah, it's obviously a problem, and like it's going. Hopefully, it disappears, and it doesn't seem like, or they seem like they're taking the proper route of like getting everyone safe and get them back to healthy. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Canada plays today. I'm pretty sure against the Swiss. If I'm right, I am not 100% right. But listen, the women's team, no one, in my opinion, is going to beat the U.S. So it's going to be hard. Like either way, the U.S. just have the best team. They killed Canada in the rivalry series. I think it was like 8-1 that game. So, man, like it's just gonna take an incredible effort if Canada's gonna pull out a gold medal at this games. But yeah, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. The women's is definitely USA heavy favorites to win the gold medal.
So you are right, though, that they play Switzerland at 3:10 Eastern on this Saturday.
I'm right.
By the time this pod comes out, it might be right when the game starts. But if you're listening to this, likely the game is over. But for us, it's just starting in the next couple hours. So still exciting.
Yeah. No, and I think, Justin, you're absolutely right. Like the USA is definitely, I think, being viewed as the team to beat in this tournament. I think Canada will. Yeah. I think they'll find a way, though. I really like the team. I like the we've seen so much. I feel like
I don't
know if it's this Olympics specifically, but the Canadian team, like they've been putting out a ton of content on social media. They've been doing a lot of stuff ahead of the games. I think it feels like they're a real cohesive group. I'm sure the U.S. is as well, but like I think when it comes to Canadian women's hockey, you know, there's a pride there that I think that maybe no other group in sports feels like it's an incredible history and what they've been able to do, especially at the Olympic Games, is incredible. And I think if they can just find that within themselves to go out and do it again, I think it would be an incredible story. And I'm really hoping that they can get that going starting today.
Pumped. And I just wanted to shout out right before I think we were recording today, or before we started recording, Canada in general won their first medal. I'm going to shout out Canadian speed skater Valerie Malte, I believe. She won Canada's first medal at the 2026 Olympics. Bronze in the women's 3,000 meters for speed skating. So shout out. I love the Winter Olympics are so much cooler, man. I like them way better for like so many reasons. Not to say that summer's bad. I think Canada does. We just have better luck in that.
We're a better country. We're a winters.
I think it's more exciting for us as a more winter nation, obviously. Correct. But I think the Summer Olympics creates individual moments that definitely reach that same height. But I would say that the Winter Games, like the games more in general, I feel like for us are just more exciting, have more to, more of a longer stay and sticking point with us than the Summer.
I'm not 100% sure how many medals there are in the Summer Olympics or events.
I think way more.
The better word. Yeah, because there's only 116 events here at this Winter Olympics, and not to say that it's not a lot of events. It's just like I'm pretty sure the Winter or the Summer Olympic crushes the Winter Olympics in terms of how many medals are handed out, and it just makes it more chaotic. So
I think a lot of that is just swimming. Like how many swimming events are there?
Swimming,
like
track and field.
Track and field.
Like a lot of individual events.
Those two alone. Yeah. Still fun, but I think because
there's
Canada
a lot more
dominates the Olympics, and
there's a lot more like tournament style events here.
In
the Winter Olympics, I find. So that's the difference.
So, but by the time, if we generally record on Thursdays, everyone, and the episodes come out on Friday. So at that point, Canada will have played their first game against Czechia on the men's side. That's 10:40 a.m. on Thursday, February 12th. So looking forward to that. And we'll have a lot to talk about until then. But is there anything else that we missed that you boys want to kind of chime in on before we wrap things up today?
No, really, just go Patriots, go. That's really the message.
Do you guys have plans for the Super Bowl tomorrow?
Great question.
Yes.
What do you got, Justin?
I'm just going to a friend's house, gonna watch it, sit down on the couch. I have to get up at 3 o'clock on Monday morning, so it's gonna be. It's gonna be
no brewskis for you, I guess. During
just the food, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of food. I'm sure. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Mando, what do you got?
Anyway, that's my plan.
Nice. I actually, my good friend hosts a Super Bowl party every year. It's kind of his thing. He's got that, and he does our fantasy hockey draft, which we all try and meet up with around October every year. But him and his wife are having their first child in April. So
Okay.
it's going to be a diaper party / Super Bowl
Oh,
party.
nice.
So instead
Wow.
of bringing food, you bring diapers. And he's
Wow.
inviting a bunch of people over, having some food, enjoying that. So that should be fun in Georgetown. But he's also a massive Packers fan. So obviously he doesn't really have a dog here in the fight, but he's still going to be probably rooting for whoever. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's the plan, Brandon. What about you?
Yeah, no, similar to you, Alex and Justin as well. Like I'll be watching with friends. Super excited. Have actually this year more than the last 2 or 3 years. We've actually been able to get a good group together. It feels like when you get older, like people kind of fracture off and do like their own, not necessarily their own thing, but then maybe they go watch with family or they're watching with other friends or whatever. And this year, like we've actually got a good group together. So I'm excited to get in. Hopefully, get some good food, some good drinks, and then we'll be obviously breaking it all down. On Monday, and then we'll be talking about it next week. I'm excited to break that down and get into what the results looked like.
Nice.
Should be
Good
fun.
stuff.
Should be fun.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well,
What a
hope you
time.
all had fun listening. If you're still with us in episode 49 of the Second Look Sports Show, so continue to follow, continue to listen, and continue to subscribe, and kind of keep an eye out as we have big things coming. But until then, enjoy the Super Bowl, enjoy the episode, enjoy the weekend, and other than that, have fun, and we'll catch up with everyone next week.